Hey guys, it is your girl Teddy and I'm back with another video. So in this video, this is going to be my everything you need to know before you pierce your nipple. If you haven't already watched my previous video, go ahead and watch it, and that is my my nipple piercing horror story. Every time I think about it, I get like goosebumps all over my body. It was such a bad experience. Make sure you check out that video. That's basically what inspired me to do the video I'm doing right now. And I'm actually gonna have a video after this, and this is going to be everything you need to know after you've pierced your nipple. Today we're starting with everything you need to know before you pierce it. So basically just expectations and different things that you probably don't know or you probably won't be told prior to getting your nipple pierced. So I got you guys covered. If anyone is thinking about getting their nipples pierced, I have you guys covered. I'm gonna have all the information, or as much information as I could find that helped me after my first horrific experience. I'm hoping it can help someone else. I didn't really see too many videos about what to expect prior to. I just saw videos about aftercare, the experience afterwards, but not so much before. So that's another reason why I decided to make this video, and I really do hope it's beneficial and helps some of you guys. Okay, so I would say first thing is research your piercer. Research your piercer. Wherever you are thinking about going to have your nipples pierced, research the place. Go on Google, go on Yelp, go on wherever you need to go, but research that establishment. And if you can research the piercer themselves, research them as well. The more information you have, it just makes it much better for you to decide who you're gonna go to. You probably want to go to someone with some experience, because that is a very sensitive area, and you would not want just anybody piercing your nipple like me. Take it from me, literally take it from me, okay? I had a shitty experience with that, and do not have or go to anybody to pierce your nipple. Second thing is, do not be discouraged by the price. Sometimes you might find some good deals on piercings, which I'll come back to, but if you go to a piercer, he or she is a reputable piercer, their establishment or business is a reputable business, you might have to spend $60 to upwards of maybe possibly even $100, and that will depend on what type of material you're piercing your nipple with, which I will also touch on with pricing. But do not be discouraged by the price. If the piercer and the studio is reputable, do not be discouraged. Pay your money, because this is a sensitive area and you do not want to mess with your nipples. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of touch on two things. Pricing in terms of the material. Some places might have nipple piercings for like a really cheap price. Like I know a place in Toronto where you can go and get like, I think it's between $20 and $30 for a piercing. So if you can go get both your nipples pierced for like 60 bucks. That might sound like a wheel of a deal to a lot of you guys, but think about it like this. Stainless steel that's implant grade or titanium costs money. It costs money to make. Certain materials, like let's say just the cheaper stainless steel, the one that's not implant grade, is pretty cheap, but a lot of times the stainless steel that's not implant grade contains a lot of nickel. Nickel is what causes a lot of allergic reactions. So if you go to a place that's piercing your nipples for cheap, honestly, they're probably using that cheap stuff, and that cheap stuff contains materials or particles that can cause your nipple to react, and I don't think anybody wants that. So more times than not, if you're going to a place and they're charging less than, let's say, 45 bucks, they're probably not using the highest quality and the highest grade material to pierce your nipples with. I would personally suggest, and this is from my own experience, but I would suggest titanium if you can, the implant grade stainless steel, or gold, rose gold, white gold, whatever, or even platinum. If you can afford platinum, go do your thing, get you some platinum if you can afford it. But the point is, I would just suggest piercing that area with materials that are definitely of high quality. You do not want your body to reject that, and you do not want to have any allergic reactions around that area. For some people, they might not be allergic to nickel, so they can probably go anywhere and just get themselves pierced. But if you know you're sensitive, or just to be on the safe side, just spend the money and get them pierced properly. You would not want, just take it from me. Spend the money and get them done properly. Another thing you'll need to have, or you need to know about prior to your nipple piercing, you may need a painkiller that helps with swelling, not just so much minimizing the pain, but something that will help minimize the swelling as well, because some women or some people swell more than others, so you may need them, you may not need them. But if you know you're sensitive and you swell easily, that's something you might want to look into. Motrin is something that is very helpful, or something that you might want to pick up ahead of time just in case. If you don't need it, keep your receipt, bring it back. But just think about that as well if you know you swell easily and if you know you're like really sensitive. Another thing, sanitation. After you've done your research and you've chosen the material you're going to use and you are going to your appointment or whatever, sanitation is very important. You want to make sure that they're using needles that are in fresh packaging, piercings that are in fresh packaging. You want to make sure the gloves are fresh. I would suggest lying down to get it done. Lying down relieves some of the tension and the anxiety on you, but you want to make sure the entire environment is clean. You want to make sure everything they're about to use on you is clean. You want to make sure the piercer looks clean. You trust me, your nipples is not something you want to play with. So just be very, very mindful and diligent that all of those things are checked, because if you feel uncomfortable, after you choose your piercing, when you get there, you will probably, if it is okay, I'm assuming that majority of nipple rings would be internally threaded, and internally threaded just means that when it's made, the threading of it is inside the pierces versus outside. So when it's pierced, the outside of the bar is smooth, so it doesn't add any like extra cuts or just it doesn't affect the piercing. So I'm sure they would use an internally threaded barbell, but just again, be very diligent and be very mindful when you go get this stuff done. Any type of nipple can be pierced. So if you have flat nipples, inverted nipples, small nipples, every type of nipple can be pierced. If your nipples are smaller, it just means you need a smaller barbell. So after you research your piercer, your location, and you've chosen that stuff, and you get there and you've chosen your titanium or gold jewelry, okay, or your implant grade jewelry, they'll look at you, they'll ask you actually what type of piercing you want. We'll get into the type of piercing, but not to worry about the size or the type of nipples you have. Anything can be pierced, okay? So now let's jump into the type of piercing you can get. Now you can either have your nipple pierced horizontally, which I believe is the most popular, or vertically, okay? Majority of times people choose horizontally just because it's the most popular, and you can always discuss that with your piercer. It's really up to you, whichever one you prefer, but you can discuss that with your piercer. Then they'll start getting you prepped to pierce your nipples. Now, from what I understand, the barbell gauge can range from a 16 gauge to a 14 gauge. Even though 16 gauge is a higher number, it's actually a thinner barbell than the 14 gauge. I'm gonna show you guys, I'm gonna get really close. So my piercing here is a 16 gauge, so I don't know if you guys can see that. That's how thin it is, versus my tongue ring, that's a 14 gauge. And you see how thick that is, right? So the thicknesses are very different. So if you have smaller nipples, they'll probably just pierce you with a 16 gauge, probably a barbell that's not as long. If you have very large nipples, they may pierce you with a 14 gauge that's longer, or maybe a 16 gauge, but just one that's longer overall. I'm not exactly sure, but if this piercer is reputable, this is information they'll have and this is what they'll know, so you guys don't have to worry about that. Be mindful that your healing time for your piercing can go anywhere from 6 months to a full year, and for some people their nipples never accept the piercing, so it really just depends on your body. But just put yourself in it. Sorry, I'm just looking at my phone. Be mindful that before you even get your nipple, this is not gonna be no, yeah, I get my nipples pierced and 2 weeks later I'm good. No, your nipples will take some time to heal. So that includes not being able to swim for a while, not being able to maybe do certain activities for a while. It just depends how sensitive that area is, and it also depends how large your chest is. I think if your chest is much larger, your nipples might not heal as quickly, and it might cause a lot more friction in your clothing, obviously, because you have so much more to work with. But just be mindful that you're gonna need some healing time, and for the first like 3 months, you cannot have any bodily fluids on your nipples. It will just throw off the healing. You don't want to throw off the pH or anything. Just be mindful that it's not a piercing that you can just have and leave alone. It's not like your ear piercings. It's definitely a piercing that requires a lot of attention, patience, and time. Breastfeeding. If you are a mother, I believe you can breastfeed actually with nipple piercings. Some mothers just take it out because it could be a choking hazard for their kid, but you can definitely breastfeed if you want to have nipple piercings during that time. It's completely up to you, but you can still breastfeed, and it does not affect your ability to breastfeed. I think, if anything, it might just be whatever. You can still breastfeed. In addition to that, just know that you may have some bleeding. So again, it's not a piercing that you can just pierce and go. You may possibly have some bleeding, you're gonna have some soreness, and you're gonna have just expect some pus. And the last thing I think I'm gonna cover, I'm hoping I covered everything. I really sat down and tried to think of everything that helped me in my deciding factor the second time around, because the first time I did not do any research. But another thing is to consider the type of jewelry you're going to have your nipples pierced with. Some people do have it pierced with the captive hoop or just a curved barbell, and some have it with the horizontal barbell or the vertical barbell. I would suggest probably doing it with the straight bar instead, just because the curved bars might tend to move around a bit, and it's easier for them to get caught on things, whereas the barbell is just straight through. It's flatter, it's easier to conceal, it won't rub across things as much, and it's really just a shorter healing time generally when you have them pierced with that. So just be mindful of that as well. The curved jewelry, if you really want that, knock yourself out, do your thing, but just be mindful that it may slow down the healing process for them as well. And another thing, this was kind of random, but I thought maybe I should include it. I'm not sure, but I'm just gonna include it because it's just something you need to know. If for whatever reason a defibrillator needs to be used on you and you have them pierced, they will need to be removed before they can use the defibrillator. That's just because I'm assuming the metal and the electricity, it's probably not the best combination. So this is probably really random, but I just wanted to throw that in there. I'm hoping I covered everything you need to know before your nipple piercing. If anyone has any additional questions, feel free to leave some comments down below. And if you haven't already, watched my previous video about my nipple piercing horror experience, and stay tuned for my next video, which is going to be everything you need to know after you've pierced your nipples, because I'm pretty sure after this, some of you guys are watching, you're probably still gonna pierce your nipples, which is not a problem. I have mine pierced and I absolutely love them, and I just thought that these pointers would be good for anyone looking to pierce them and just kind of wanting to know what to expect. Another thing that I didn't mention is the soreness, which is the most obvious. So your chest will be very sore. You'll realize how tender your nipples are, and you'll also realize how much they come into contact with little things and how much they brush against things. We don't really notice that because we don't really pay attention to them like that, but once they're pierced, you'll really notice how they touch and brush against everything, and it's just you'll notice a huge difference. They will be sore, they will be swollen. Some people will be swollen for weeks, maybe even up to a month. If it's up to a month, I'd probably go back to your piercer. But if you have the right jewelry and your body is not rejecting them, your swelling should not last probably more than like 10 to 15 days. If you're still having, or if you're still experiencing a lot of swelling after maybe like 7 days, I'd probably try the Motrin. If after a little while that doesn't work for you, then I'd probably go back to your piercer. But yeah, again, I hope that I covered everything, and thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for my next video. Bye.